I don't think I've ever fallen in love with a car so quickly as I have this car. Oh my God. Everything about this car makes me giggle like an 8-year-old girl. I mean, it's so cool to look at from the outside. It really looks like a spaceship. Everyone's constantly clicking their little phones at me. It's cool on the outside, but it's even cooler on the inside. It smells like old English leather in here. It really makes me feel like James Bond. And speaking of James Bond, not only is this a James Bond car, but it has a James Bond VIN number. Yes, it's got 007 on the VIN number. How cool is that? And this is the V12 turbocharged engine. I want to take this engine home and marry it. Ah, the way it produces power is just so glorious. It has the same torque throughout the whole rev range, and that torque is impressive. It's so much fun to drive this car. If I was doing a road trip across a continent, this is the car I'd pick. What a glorious machine this thing is. I do not want to give it back. So looks, engine, performance, it has it all, plus a lot of little niceties. You know, every switch and dial and knob is a masterclass in perfection of feel. That is, when you turn a knob, it has a very satisfying click and feel to it. When you press a lever, it has just the right touch to it. And even the manual shifters have a very satisfying clunk to them when you pull on them. But it's really that engine that is so addictive. And right now I've got it in GT mode, which is its long distance cruising mode, quietest mode of the engine. Everything is smooth, everything is easy to drive. And you press this little red S on the dash here and it moves it into sport, and then sport plus mode. And then it changes its personality completely and turns into a sort of savage monster waiting for dinner. Put your foot down, and it's so violent in its changes and the way it accelerates. It's a completely different car. It is something else. It is very tempting to drive around in S Plus or Sport Plus mode all the time because of the crazy behavior of this car in that mode. And this car, you can just tell at 200 miles an hour would be steady as a rock, and it just wants to do it all the time. Ah! Yeah, glorious. So they've really put together a beautiful car here, and it's so different than previous Aston Martins. You know, obviously, I kind of miss the backwards dials that they had previously, but the dash is so nice and clear, and everything seems to work more or less. Even the infotainment system works. It's pulled straight out of the cheapest CLA 300, but it works, which is pretty strange for an Aston Martin. And on the other side of the steering wheel is the dampener settings, which just stiffen up the suspension. And for such what feels like a big car, it is surprisingly nimble. Well, it is a regular 8-speed torque converter automatic. This transmission is as responsive as any dual clutch I've ever used. I'll put it in manual mode here and I'll show you. 6th, 5th, 4th, put my foot down, change it down again. It brings up the little change lights in the center there, but just builds up speed at a crazy pace. I drive a lot of fun cars, but this is the first one in a while that I've thought, boy, this would be a nice car to own. That V12 engine sounds glorious. But as you'd expect from an Aston Martin of this caliber, it's got lots of little quirks, fun little quirks. Of course, it's got the B&O stereo, so the speakers pop up at the front. It doesn't have a glove box. Instead, it's got this center console, which has got its own electric motor that opens and closes, which is kind of weird. The seat controls are down here on the left, very difficult to get to. The doors are not billionaire doors. They still open out, but up, which is kind of cool. The bonnet is awesome. It's a big clamshell that opens forward, and you got to press this little button here, and then it opens and it reveals that gorgeous V12 engine. But then when you go to close it, it's the first bonnet I've ever seen that has a soft touch close. That is, you close the bonnet and then it sucks it down. So neat. Other little touches like the sun visor mirror covers just sort of glide backwards and forwards. I could do that all day long. There are back seats, but they're really only comfortable for a gorilla. I tried fitting in there, no way. Even smaller than my 911 back there. There's just no way a normal sized adult could fit back there. It has a small trunk in the back. You couldn't fit a person in there, but you could fit a little bit of luggage back there. And while I absolutely adore this DB11 and wish that I could afford one, is it perfect? Of course not. It's handmade in Great Britain, which means that things fall off all the time. Little bits of trim are wrong, and you know, even though this is a brand new car, even under the bonnet here, this latch is rusty and loose, and there's all little quirks like that all over the car. Nothing major, nothing that detracts from the driving experience, but still, $250,000, $300,000 car, you expect things to stay on. At the end of the day, it's the driving experience, and you pop it into S mode, which takes a second, you put your foot down, all is forgiven. And while no one could call this a green car or an economical car, it tries its hardest. For example, here we are at 80 miles an hour, and it's in 8th gear and just ticking along just below 2,000 RPM. See? Fuel savings. Okay, so Tui and I are back in my little Carrera 4S for a quick drag race against the DB11. It's not looking good for me. However, I do have the rear wiper, which adds 25 horsepower, and I have the roof racks, which add about 50 horsepower, I think. So it's not that bad, but he does have twice as many cylinders and like 200 horsepower more. You're gonna have to hold your tongue in a particular way, Tui. But I think it's going to be a sort of a Battle of Britain situation where not holding out too much hope for the Germans. Okay, all set? Come up beside me. 3, 2, 1, do it! See, the roof racks do make a difference. That thing is fast though. What a beautiful car. And thank God for the 360-degree camera and front view camera when parking. Because the hood bonnet is so long and high, even a 6-foot tall person like myself with my head on the roof, I can't see 12 feet in front of the car. It's between 12 and 13 feet is the closest distance I can see. And so if there's an obstacle in front of me, I can't see it. If you see here, Tui's sitting in the garage, but from the car, there's just no way I can see her. So as I move forward, she comes into view on this camera and on this camera before I run her over. Let's see if she moves. Gonna run you over, Tui. Gonna run you over. There she goes. And coming into a garage, yeah, it's just really hard to tell where the edges of this car are. And it's nerve-wracking if it wasn't for the camera. The camera makes it pretty easy. Yeah, I would have no idea where the front of the car is if not for this camera. So that's pretty cool. Modern technology making owning a DB11 so much easier. And same with the reverse. You just never know what was behind you. And there's Tui in the camera again. And as I come through here, you can see her coming through. Hey, Tui. And she's back to her original position. But once again, she's in the middle of the garage now, and I cannot see her. Switch to the front view. Yeah, so you can see she's in the middle of the garage, which is at least 12, maybe 15 feet away, and I cannot see her from the car.